let's get with it, man. Starfield. 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 You guys know I've been a big prominent for Starfield. You can argue that I definitely have been propping this game up. Look, Starfield's one of the most important games when it comes to me. I actually feel like Starfield's one of the most important games in Microsoft history, if not the most important one. You know, put the comment section below if you agree. I actually might make a video on that. So I was sitting here talking, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, what are some of the things that I need Starfield to be? What are some of the stuff that I want Starfield to be? So that's what this video is going to be. It's how I want Starfield to play. How I want Starfield's, you know, space functions to go. How I want the campaigns to go. The companions to go. The narrative in general. Because there's a difference between having a campaign and having a well-focused narrative. There could be multiple narratives in a game, but there can only be one real like main story. But all right, let's break this down a little bit. What's going on, guys? It's Gaming Addict. I love Bethesda Software Studios. I remember playing Skyrim day one, hour zero, launch title. Well, not launch title, but you guys get what I'm saying. I remember playing it with some Krispy Kreme donuts, some chicken, some Doritos. Yeah, I remember that. And, you know, when it comes to Starfield, when it was first announced, clearly I'm more hyped for Elder Scrolls 6. That's my bread and butter. But I respect the studio, and I think they can make a fantastic game on their own. Easy. They can make a game on their own. So, first thing I want is a world that's immersive. Now, for those of you wondering, Addict, what do you mean by that? I want a world where you go around, there's sectors that belong to certain factions. I pull up to one, let's say I have certain memorial, like let's say I have like stuff on my ship that belongs to another faction. I want that faction that I pulled up to. It's like it's on site because I'm with an enemy faction. There's a difference between being with a faction that isn't necessarily against a faction you're with, and having a faction that you're with that hates the faction that you have, that you're coming up to. So for instance, you know, I'll pull up to one of those, okay, you know, we know about you, but you ain't really did no harm. So they're not going to really do much to you. You know, if I have a faction that's like a pirate faction, like I said in an example earlier, and I pull up to a faction that's really based off laws, based off justice, I want that faction to shoot me on sight. I want there to be consequences for picking another entity that's not my faction. That's just my opinion when it comes to that. Now, let's pull this back a little bit and talk about companions. You know, companions is a huge part in all Bethesda Software Studio games. Companions is one of those things that you need to make sure that you get everything right. And what I mean by everything right is there's certain aspects about companions that I feel sometimes Bethesda hits good and sometimes they don't hit good. For instance, in Fallout 4, I felt like the companions were there, but they weren't captivating. They didn't really interest me to a huge degree. And I think that is one of the biggest things. Like, I want companions to have motives of their own, like huge motives. I want the obstacle that, depending on how I talk to other people and other factions, they can just straight up leave me. They're like, no, I don't rock with you this way. You know, a good example I can think of is BioWare, you know, Baldur's Gate 3. You can have the wrong conversation with your companions and they're an enemy. Just like that. That's what I want from companions. Clearly, I want to be able to have like a side story, you know, line that comes with the companions. Every companion should have that story that belongs to them, that sooner or later integrates to the main story. Now, they've already said they're doing this, but, you know, until I see it, I got to say that's what I want. Gunplay. You guys know that, you know, I love gunplay. I love, you know, gameplay in general. I love mechanics in gunplay. I feel like Fallout is definitely the best gameplay that Bethesda Software Studios has made to a lot of degrees, and I think a lot of that's because of the VAT system on here. Now, they don't have that in this game, to my knowledge. Maybe they do in the actual game and we just don't know it. But I think if they don't, they need to be really particular on how they engage in combat. I think that's really important. Combat, that's what we're going to be doing 80% of the time. So it's got to be clean. It's got to be good. And that's one of the biggest criticisms I can give them is make sure your combat feels nice. Make sure those guns feel like they have impact. Make sure the lasers don't sound like microwaves. I hope that the game, especially in sound, does very well when it comes to combat. Another thing when it comes to combat, I want multiple different ways that I can play. I want to be able to talk my way out of everything if I want to, if I have a high enough speech skill. I want to be able to, set up traps if I want to. I want a variety of gameplay and gameplay that feels good. I think that's, if not one of the most important things about this game, is the combat. How is it going to feel? Now, we know about the universe. We know that there's 1,000 planets. Now, I think people blew that out of proportion just a little bit. But I do think there is a good way of doing this. Now, they said only 10% of those 1,000 planets you can go to. Most of them are resource collection. And that's fine. If you went out in the universe right now, I guarantee you the majority of them wouldn't even really have any say-so whatsoever. They're not really good for anything. Jupiter is just a giant thing of gas. So I could see why there's a lot of incidences where that definitely could be the case in the real world. I want factions to own certain aspects. I want to be able to go to one planet and see that faction, what they've done to that planet. I want different type of combat. Obviously, certain planets could have more gravity than other planets. I want to see and feel, and that gameplay feels really good to have that combat in those other unique planets. There's a lot of ways that you can have combat, and I think the reason they had so many planets that's randomly generated is because when you're talking about a space type of game, a universe type of game, there's got to be more than 3 or 4 planets. If you're going around and you're flying around, that is going to be very important if there's actually, it feels like you're exploring. Now think about it. The biggest games that's ever been out there, Breath of the Wild, Baldur's Gate 3, Tears of the Kingdom, Skyrim, Elden Ring, all these games had huge aspects of exploration. And that's why you need so many planets, because you need to feel that exploration everywhere you go. And I think that's the reason they have all these planets. Now, obviously, are you going to go to all of them? Most likely not. But that 10%, that 100 planets, I feel like the main story is going to be in those planets, because I don't think some of these worlds are going to be generated. A lot of these worlds are going to be generated, but some of them are going to be set in stone so you can actually have a cohesive story. My hope is that. Now, let's talk about the space exploration. I want it to feel good. I want it to feel like, kind of a Star Trek-y kind of vibe. Star Wars, Star Trek kind of vibe where, at any time you look around, you bring up the map, you see something, you click on it, you can go over there and you can look at it. I feel like that's really important for Starfield, that we get that, Star Wars, Star Trek kind of exploration where, if you're sitting there and you go to a random planet and they have someone there and they're like, there's a moon here that actually has a base on it. I want to be able to just jump in my ship and go straight to that base. I think that's really important in the matter. Starfield has a lot of things going for it, and I think that this studio has took a long time to make this game for a reason. There could be a lot of things that make this game go wrong. There could be a lot of things that make this game go right, but I do truly believe that just the little things that I brought up, obviously I want boss designs. I want, to feel like I go on some of these planets, there's a giant boss there I can fight. I want space creatures. I want aliens to feel like they have unique civilizations. All of these is a must. There's got to be a difference between alien species A and alien species B, depending on what planets they are, what kind of systems they go into, what kind of planets they're friendly being around. Maybe some live underwater. There's a lot of different aspects because you're doing this universe type of game that you can go into. A good example is something like BioWare, Mass Effect franchise. When you went into those unique places and those civilizations, they all felt different to a point. And I that's the kind of energy I want in this game. I think they got something. I really do. Clearly, the review codes are coming out. I don't know when, if we'll be getting one, but I wanted to make this before I got that because I don't want the game itself to really compromise what I want for the game. Because if I'm playing the game, how am I going to speak about what I want from the game? So I made this video. These are just light touches on what I feel can make Starfield a truly special game that lives years and years on past its expiration date, just like Skyrim. Especially when the mod community gets a hold of it. Those 1,000 planets, X amount of planets that don't really have much going on it, that mod community is going to make those planets look lit. It's going to give them a lot of in-depth when it comes to the world. Guns and stuff, that matters. Like I said, it's got to feel real. There's got to be multiple type of guns that give you a different aspect of fighting. Obviously, we've seen that in some of their trailers, so that's going to be present in this game. But I would say the most important thing is, like, Bethesda, make sure this game feels good. Make sure the gameplay feels good. And that's pretty much the biggest criticism I would have for it. Make sure that gameplay is good. Put in the comment section below, what is the most important thing from Starfield to you guys? Because I'm really curious about what my community thinks the most important thing about Starfield is. Put in the comment section below. And so, I appreciate all of the support you guys have been giving me. I hit 5,000 subs. If you guys enjoyed this video, definitely hit that like button. If you guys don't mind, you can always sub to the channel, do weekly content. Go over there and follow me on Twitter at LordAddictILP. And without any further ado, that's the end of the video. And I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Addict out.